All right, two things. One is we have a little 49er nugget to drop on you guys right now. And then we can go a little bit into big picture. But Mike Florio, Pro Football Focus, was on today on the Pat McAfee show. And he was talking about Brandon Aiyuk. And to me, we're getting more and more info about specifically Brandon Aiyuk. And things are starting to add up, and I don't think it spells anything good for Aiyuk. This is Mike Florio from today on the Pat McAfee show. Take a listen.
You know, it's funny. He'd been very compliant. He hadn't asked to be traded. There was a time before the draft where, as they were haggling over what he is worth, his agent was given permission to see if other teams would pay him what he was looking for. And at the time, it was $28 million a year. It's probably higher than that now because the market's changed. I'm told there were 5 teams that were ready to go and give him what he wanted, what the 49ers wouldn't give him. But they couldn't work out a deal with the 49ers for a trade. And, you know, from the 49ers perspective, this is where it gets a little screwy. You've got 5 other teams that were willing to pay him what he wants and give you something to get him. Why won't you just pay him what he wants? So he's taken the stand now. He's asked to be traded. We'll see if he shows up for camp. But one thing about the 49ers, we've seen guys, you got to be the squeaky wheel to get paid. You got to be Deebo Samuel, demand to be traded for weeks, and you get paid. Nick Bosa, hold out until right before the start of the season. You get paid. I think Aiyuk is shifting into, I'm done being a nice guy here because that didn't give me anything. I'm going to start agitating to either get the contract I deserve or get traded to a team that'll pay me. I think one thing we can all agree on, $14.1 million is criminally low for a guy who was a second-team All-Pro, second in the league in yards per target. He had 1,300-plus receiving yards on only 105 targets last year. Imagine what he could do if he was getting the ball thrown his way 180 times like CeeDee Lamb.
All right, so Mike Florio is pro Brandon Aiyuk, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, but I'll steal one of your lines. They don't really want to trade him. No. If 5 teams have called, hello, that's 5. And they were like, nothing's good enough. You've always said, Goo, they don't want to trade him. And I get it. He's stellar.
This reminds me of when the 49ers had Garoppolo and they were asking for 2 first-round picks. Oh, we can't get anything for Garoppolo. Well, you're not getting 2 first-round picks for Garoppolo, so what you're really telling teams is you don't want to move him. And I'm convinced now the San Francisco 49ers don't want to move Brandon Aiyuk unless they get a haul. And then, 2, I'm starting to think that they are really going to put him in a box and make him make a tough decision as to whether to report next week, which I don't think he will, and then we'll see what happens after that. But let me ask 49er fans this. Does it still sound with Aiyuk like it's business as usual, or do you feel like it might be something more than just the normal course of negotiations that the 49ers have undergone with other players over the last, let's say, 3 to 5 years? 888-957-9570 is the number. And with that little piece of information, does that make you think anything differently? Mike Florio saying the 49ers had 5 teams before the NFL draft that were willing to trade for Brandon Aiyuk and pay him $28 million. Clearly, the 49ers wanted at least a first-round pick, but I read the story, too, which gave additional information to what Mike Florio said, Goo. And in the story, he has executives, or at least one executive, saying they want too much for Aiyuk. So
they're being unrealistic.
The odds of a team, a team's got to do 2 things. They got to be willing to pay Aiyuk, and then they got to be willing to give something up in order to make Aiyuk one of the highest paid receivers in the league. And who's going to do that?
Yeah, nobody.
Who's going to do that?
I don't believe anybody. And I'll tell you this, after hearing that soundbite from Florio Steiny, who I like, that to me lets me know if 5 teams have called, the Niners know better. They don't want to give him up. They're going to play hardball. He'll most likely play on his 5th-year option. But
Oh, so you think that's what's going to happen?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt now. And
no doubt.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
So you're not giving him any opportunity to get this thing done in terms of a contract extension, just like the other guys. Debo.
No, that's still out there. Okay. My point is he was going to still be in the red and gold.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And I went back because, when it first came out and he did the Pivot podcast with Ryan Clark, Steiny, I just caught pieces of it. I went and watched that thing in its entirety. And the last question of the podcast was, what's your prediction, Brandon? What uniform will you be wearing this season? And Steiny, he sat there, tick, 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 and he goes, 49er uniform. And everything that I'm hearing, the tea leaves, it's going in that direction. I don't think they're going to be so cold to make them play on that 5th year. I know I just said it, but I won't be shocked. But you drafted Ricky Pearsall on draft night. If you really thought you could or you wanted to or could be the same or if not better with Pearsall, you could have traded him then, and you didn't. So that just leads me down to what we just heard Mike say. When did Debo get his? When did Bosa get his? He held out. But I think Aiyuk is going to be a Niner. Monday night against the Jets.
Are you at any point, how do I want to put this? How do I want to put this? So, Goo, are you starting to realize that professional sports are a business? That it's not, we're a family. And if Brandon wants $28 million, we'll give him $28 million.
You're funny.
You see what I'm saying here, Goo?
Life is
This is
business.
the San Francisco 49ers, and they're telling Brandon Aiyuk, you know what? We can live without you.
But to the average fan,
we ain't moving you.
Okay.
We ain't moving you.
And that's why you just double back and ask, they won't be that cold. Somehow they're going to come to a resolution.
Yeah, probably now for $23 million, and he's going to take it.
I just feel like they're penny pinching in a sense. If it's 26 or 28 or the 26 is gone, which it could be, I just feel like a dude of that caliber, maybe I got him on a higher pedestal than they believe.
Well,
maybe Kyle's saying, I can make Pearsall that or Jawan Jennings, a combo.
I think I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay, and I got to get this off my chest.
Yep.
I asked you, do you think this is a deterrent or, is this bothersome to the team? But I do know now when camp starts, this Brandon Aiyuk situation has now superseded any regular football question we had about the team. That's not going anywhere, but he's already high. They, together, collectively, this thing's leading off First Take and all the shows, the Brandon Aiyuk. We had Acho on. We didn't talk about the Niners, X's and O's, because you got questions there. So that's why, Steiny, I believe you have to have your house in order. When you win a chip, you know what? This is nothing. But the fact that you want to get back and hit the ground running. And what did we say about Bosa? Oh, his mama said he was eating his top ramen and he was in shape. Season ends. He says he wasn't in the best shape. Debo held out. What happened with him? You know what? I wasn't in the. So there is collateral damage of not having your stuff in order from everybody involved.
You brought up something interesting, and it got me to thinking, what is the 49ers' biggest issue right now? Is it Brandon Aiyuk, or is it something football related? I think that's a really good question, to be honest with you. And if you said, Steiny, what's the 49ers' biggest issue right now? I still would think it's a football issue. And I'm going to think it's a football issue until we start passing the dates in which other 49ers have gotten paid. So I'm going to operate under the premise that
would be smart too.
That Aiyuk right now is not the biggest issue. So what do I think the biggest issue is? And I was thinking about this yesterday, and I actually wrote down a few things. To me, the biggest, and I don't know if it's an issue, but it's an obstacle or challenge, is how do the 49ers avoid complacency in the regular season? That's the one thing I do wonder about, because in essence, I compare this team, the 49ers, to the Warriors.
You did do that.
They've been to 4 NFC championships. They're just like the Warriors, except they haven't won 4 titles, but they've been ultra successful. And so they've gone to 4 NFC championship games in 5 years, and They know they're a damn good team. They know they probably have the personnel to do it again to get to the Super Bowl, but they still have to go through the grind of getting there. And to me, that's going to be something that they're going to have to overcome, because they're going to realize at various points during the year how long the season is. And I think it's going to be a mental issue that they're going to have to overcome.
I'm not mad at that. I'll say I disagree, because right now, Steiny, I'm assuming after them winning, 12 games last year, and we find out on Christmas that the other teams are in their league or whatnot, like the Baltimore Ravens, and we saw what the Chiefs did and what Green Bay almost did, shocking the world in the playoffs on the road here at Levi's. It's hell for me, Steiny. It just is. It's health. Now you're going to be like, Goo, that's football, but I know, but now what happens if Purdy gets hurt? What happens if McCaffrey goes down? That, to me, supersedes, the complacency.
Aren't the answer simple? Then you're done. Like, it's so, and we've done this for 10 years.
But when Trey Lance went down, they weren't done.
Well, he stunk.
I know, but
he wasn't their best quarterback. Purdy's their best quarterback.
But we didn't know Purdy was their best quarterback. Normally, when Jimmy was on the ground.
So you think Dobbins is better than Purdy?
No, I'm saying we didn't know until we saw Purdy do what he did. Normally, that's the kill shot to a season, like you just assumed. But they didn't die. They actually got better. You know what I mean? From Jimmy going down. And
so why are you worried about injuries then? They've overcome them in the past.
Well, because of Dobbs. I don't think he's Purdy.
Dobbs is more proven than Purdy was when Purdy took over.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, like, I never worry about injuries.
But with the Warriors, you do.
Well, that's because they're old. The Warriors are old, and I make a big differentiation between a guy who's 26 and gets hurt, because he's going to come back the next year.
So that's why Pearsall don't even concern you right now.
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. We don't even know what the injury is. How can you be worried about something you don't even know about?
But if it was something minute, it would be
my point is this. If they lose McCaffrey, they're not going to win the Super Bowl. If they lose Purdy, they're not going to win the Super Bowl probably. And that's something I think you could pick 2 to 3 players off any team and say the same thing. Like, why should the Chiefs be any more worried about Mahomes getting hurt than the 49ers should about Purdy?
The rat on the table for me, and that answer is so quick and fast.
Right.
They got 3 chips.
Well, but
they've got it done.
But that's the past. Like, you can't do anything about that at this point.
But it also, like, if I were to ask you right now and the listeners, there's an added pressure of a natural pressure of the Niners to cash in during this era. So there is some pressure, not on the field, just because of how close they've gotten and how many times you're going to be able to go up to the plate with a chance to win the game.
Yeah,
you don't reside, huh?
I mean, I don't doubt there's pressure, but why do we always look at pressure as a negative? Great ones respond great to pressure.
Maybe because they haven't answered the bell on the biggest moments by blowing leads, if you want to call it that, or, being right there. I just hate that we all, and right now, there's no question in my mind, Steiny, Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT right now, currently in the league. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you, I'm not going to tell you that I felt like the Niners could have beat him twice on the biggest stage. That would change a lot. He would have 2 losses in the Super Bowl. He doesn't. They won. But a lot of that was the Niners' breakdowns, offensive line,
right, but again,
overthrows,
it's
defensive.
They're 0. Like, I'm looking at the Niners. They're 0-0. Like, they can't. They can't.
For this year, I got you.
Right. And so when do we stop talking about them not getting it done? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, they've probably, they have to put it behind them.
I guess I use the Andy Reid model in Philly. Like, when did Eagle fans think that was going to end? And it ended probably different reasons, but they got close and they couldn't get it done.
And that's what happens sometimes with teams. They have a window, they don't get it done, and then they got to regroup. 888-957-9570 is the number. What's your concern about the Niners this year? What gives you confidence? They've been to 4 NFC championship games in 5 years. Are they going to another one? You tell me. Let's go to Ben. Ben is in Fairfield. What's up, Ben? How you doing, man?
I'm good, guys. Good on a Friday. Just thinking about your question about, like, is Aiyuk the bigger problem or is it some other football-related thing?
Yeah.
And I think the offensive line is more of a concern for me. I think you think about Chris Jones, like 5 yards in the backfield in the Super Bowl, and McKivitz and Feliciano and Burford on that right side of the line. I'm more concerned about that and what that looks like this season than, obviously Pearsall and Juwan Jennings can maybe fill in that role that Aiyuk might have on the offense. So I think as far as concern, obviously the offensive line is where that starts for me.
Yeah, and I
good point.
Think about it now this way. Would you rather have, if I told you right now, I'll give you two choices. The offensive line can be like it was last year, and Aiyuk will return, and he'll be the wide receiver, or Aiyuk isn't a part of the Niners, but they get improved offensive line play next season. They protect Purdy better. Which do you want?
Wow. I'm going with the first, man, just because I'm pro Aiyuk.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm tingling with that, but Steiny, Aiyuk is a bad dude. And if you're telling me, well, they wouldn't get better protection, but I just don't feel like you can make that up with Jennings and Pearsall or by committee. That's just me. And he kept your season alive in the playoffs. And I know people go, "Goo, those just two plays." Nah, those were two acrobatic plays by one Aiyuk that kept the season alive.
Yeah, he didn't have a good postseason.
And I'm saying they didn't.
Who?
The Niners offense, defense, coaching. And that caller's point, Steiny, real quick here, he said Chris Jones. I want to rip my mic out because he said Super Bowl, but Super Bowls, that mimicked the 19 Super Bowl. It's the same thing. Went down to the end. They had the ball with a chance to win, and offensive linemen were just whiffing on the most important pass plays of the game. That happened twice.
I think you got to stop living in the past. We're coming up on the 2024 season. What good? And let me ask you this. What does it matter that Jimmy Garoppolo overthrew Emmanuel Sanders 5 years ago?
And I wasn't even thinking of that one. He had time to throw that ball. I'm just talking about other plays where he's getting hit in the your boy was wrecking the play, hitting him in the side of the helmet, Jimmy. Chris Jones was. Steiny, I guess the reason I won't let it go is technically it keeps happening at the most inopportune time. And outside of Trent Williams, how would you grade this Niner offensive line? They need to add something.
Well, how are they going to add something now?
No, just X's and O's wise.
San Jose Jazz fan on YouTube. Offensive line, offensive line, offensive line, offensive line. Fernie 559, let go of Brandon Aiyuk for an improved line. Let's see.
If they had that, they would do it.
You can't get back to the Super Bowl, or you can't get to the Super Bowl without an offensive line. So it sounds like 49er fans are more concerned, and you can tell me if I'm right or not at 888-957-9570. Are you more concerned with the 49ers offensive line, or possibly them being without a weapon in Brandon Aiyuk? I'm kind of with the comments I've read. I mean, I think you can get it done without Aiyuk. Wow. If you'd have to. I do.
The Niners have proven they can get there with this current offensive line or a different version of it in 19. But the bottom line is, Steiny, can you win it all?
Is the offensive line the biggest football issue for the San Francisco 49ers right now? I'd have to say it probably is, right?
For me, it is. And outside of Trent Williams, Steiny, we don't know.
But even if, let's just say right now, the 49ers traded Aiyuk for a pick, a first or second round pick that they won't utilize till next year. Will you look at the San Francisco 49ers and say, our biggest issue is lack of weapons, lack of a number one receiver? Or would you say our biggest issue is still the offensive line? Because if we get Purdy, really good protection, he's going to have enough weapons to make it work.
Look at my man in his bag. That's a layup for me, left-handed layup, Steiny, and I'm going lack of weaponry and a number one wide receiver. Tebow is a gadget guy. He's special, but I feel like he's a one-trick pony. Defenses are caught up, and that's why to have that balance of Aiyuk to be able to stretch it and do what he does, It's different. And maybe, hey, I said, Purdy threw him 3 times. Maybe better O-line, better protection, Purdy hits him.
You should be upset then with the Niners because if the way you're describing Deebo Samuel, and you just called him a one-trick pony and a gadget player.
Which was not.
Well, then they made a mistake paying him $24 million.
No, it's a damn good gadget. And it's a damn good gadget when you got a guy like Aiyuk and Kittle, also around you. So I hope I don't sound like I'm dismissing Deebo. He plays off of what they have. Off of Aiyuk. They play off each other perfectly, and it gives Kyle more opportunity. They lost 3 games without Deebo. Him 2.5 because he went out early in Cleveland.
What do you got for me?
Is this a compliment or an insult? Kenny, you're a one-trick pony.
Depends what my one trick is.
The one trick is phenomenal. You are beautiful. I'm not saying it but
Kenny, you're a gadget. You're just a gadget player.
That's a backhanded compliment.
Oh, boy.
He's better than that.
But, hey, he is better than that. And he single-handedly, without damn McCaffrey, put the Niners on his back in years past. He earned that bread. He earned that contract.